I was standing in the break room when my boss, Rebecca, walked in and said, "Girls like you can't afford to breathe the same air as our real donors." I froze with my coffee cup halfway to my lips. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. 3 other junior associates stood around the table, their eyes darting between Rebecca and me. Nobody moved. Nobody said a word. I was 25 years old. I'd been working at Morrison & Blake Consulting for 2 years, grinding through 60-hour weeks, living in a studio apartment with furniture from Goodwill. I wore the same 4 blazers on rotation. I brought Tupperware lunches while everyone else ordered seamless. Rebecca crossed her arms, her Cartier bracelet catching the light. She was the VP of Corporate Relations, tall and polished, the kind of woman who wore cream-colored suits that never wrinkled. "The annual charity gala is for executives and major donors only," she continued, her voice dripping with condescension. "The ticket is $12,000. Per person." My throat tightened. I'd seen the email invitation that morning. The gala benefited the Children's Hospital Foundation, the same hospital that saved my little brother's life 15 years ago when we had nothing. I wanted to attend to support the cause. I managed to say, my voice smaller than I intended. Rebecca laughed. Actually laughed. "Support the cause? Honey, your entire yearly salary wouldn't cover your seat at that table. This event is for people who matter. People who can actually make a difference." The words hit like a slap. Sarah from accounting looked down at her phone. Mike from IT suddenly became very interested in the coffee maker. My hands trembled. "I'm going to save you the embarrassment," Rebecca said, pulling out her phone. "I'm removing your name from the distribution list right now. Consider it a favor." "You don't belong there." She turned on her designer heels and walked out, leaving me standing there with my cheap coffee and my Goodwill blazer, feeling about 2 inches tall. But what Rebecca didn't know, what nobody in that office knew, was that 3 months ago, I'd sold the small tech startup I'd built in my bedroom during college. The acquisition was quiet. No press release. No celebration. Just a wire transfer for $2.3 million sitting in my bank account. And I'd already made a decision about that money. That night, I sat in my tiny studio apartment staring at my laptop screen. The gala invitation glowed in my inbox, the one I'd screenshot before Rebecca deleted me from the list. Morrison & Blake Annual Charity Gala, an evening of giving. Black tie. The Plaza Hotel. Saturday, June 15th. I pulled up my banking app. The number was still there, still real. $2,347,191.32. My startup had been a simple inventory management software I'd coded during sleepless nights in my dorm room. A mid-sized company in Boston bought it quietly last March. I'd signed an NDA, told no one. Not my roommate. Not my parents. Not a single person at work. Why? Because I wanted to know who I really was without the money. I wanted to see how people treated me when I was just me. A young woman in cheap blazers trying to make it in corporate America. Turns out I got my answer. I closed my laptop and looked around my apartment. The futon I'd bought for $200. The desk from IKEA. The single window that overlooked a brick wall. I'd kept living here, kept bringing Tupperware lunches, kept wearing the same 4 blazers. Because I'd made myself a promise the day that money hit my account. I wouldn't touch it until I found the right way to honor where I came from. And I knew exactly where I came from. 15 years ago, my little brother Danny collapsed at school. He was 7. Leukemia. Stage 4. Our parents worked 3 jobs between them and still couldn't cover the treatments. We were drowning in medical bills, selling everything we owned. The Children's Hospital Foundation stepped in. They covered everything: treatments, medications, experimental therapy. They saved Danny's life when we had absolutely nothing to offer in return. My phone buzzed. A text from my mom. Danny got accepted to medical school, starting in the fall. He wants to be a pediatric oncologist. We're so proud, I smiled, tears blurring my vision. Then I opened my laptop again and navigated to the Children's Hospital Foundation website. There was a form. Make a major donation. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. I thought about Rebecca's words. Girls like you. Can't afford. Don't belong. I typed in the amount $80,000. Then I paused. Deleted it. Typed again, $100,000. No, that wasn't enough. That wasn't what Danny's life was worth. That wasn't what this moment meant. I deleted it again and typed the number that felt right in my chest. $80,000 for the Gala sponsorship, plus an additional pledge. The confirmation email arrived instantly. Thank you for your Diamond Legacy sponsorship. Your contribution will transform children's lives. But I wasn't done. I picked up my phone and called the foundation directly. A woman answered. Children's Hospital Foundation, this is Margaret speaking. Hi, Margaret. My name is Emma Chen. I just made a donation online and I'd like to discuss the gala this Saturday. Oh, Miss Chen, yes, I'm looking at your donation right now. $80,000, this is incredible. Thank you so much. I want to attend the gala, I said. And I have one very specific request. Anything, Margaret said, her voice warm. What do you need? I smiled, thinking of Rebecca's face in the break room. I need you to not announce my donation in advance. I want to remain anonymous until the event itself. Can you do that? There was a pause. That's unusual for our diamond sponsors. We typically recognize major donors beforehand to encourage others. But if that's your wish, absolutely. We'll keep it confidential. Perfect, I said. One more thing. I work at Morrison & Blake Consulting. My boss, Rebecca Torres, she's on your planning committee. Yes, Rebecca is wonderful. She's been helping coordinate for years. I bit my lip. Right, she doesn't know about my donation. And I'd like to keep it that way until Saturday night. Is that possible? Margaret laughed softly. A surprise reveal? I love it. Consider it done, Miss Chen. We'll make sure it's a night nobody forgets. I hung up and looked at myself in the mirror across from my futon. Same girl, same cheap apartment. But something had shifted. Saturday was 3 days away, and Rebecca Torres had absolutely no idea what was coming. Friday afternoon, the office was buzzing about the gala. I kept my head down at my desk, pretending to review spreadsheets while conversations floated around me. Rebecca secured a $50,000 sponsor this year, someone whispered near the printer. Some hedge fund executive. She's been bragging about it all week. She always lands the big fish, another voice replied. That's why she's untouchable here. I stared at my computer screen, my jaw tight. Rebecca swept through the office around 3 p.m., holding her phone like a scepter. She stopped at the cluster of desks near mine, her voice deliberately loud. The car service is picking me up at 5 tomorrow, she announced. Hair appointment at 2, makeup at 3:30. This gala is the event of the season, and Morrison & Blake needs to look exceptional. Karen from HR smiled up at her. Your dress must be stunning. Valentino, Rebecca said, flipping her hair. Custom. Cost more than some people's cars. Her eyes flickered toward me for just a second, a smirk playing at her lips. I kept typing, my fingers steady even though my heart was pounding. Speaking of the gala, Rebecca continued, I finalized the seating chart this morning. We have 2 tables this year. Executives only, of course. We can't have just anyone representing our firm. Absolutely, Michael, one of the senior partners, chimed in. This is about cultivating relationships with real players. Rebecca's smile widened. Exactly. This isn't some office party where everyone gets a participation trophy. This is where the grown-ups network. She looked directly at me this time, holding my gaze. Some people understand that, others, well, they need to know their place. I met her eyes and gave her the smallest, sweetest smile. Sounds like an important event. Oh, it is, Rebecca said, turning away. Far too important for— Rebecca! Michael interrupted, walking over with his tablet. The foundation just sent the final donor list. Have you seen it? Her face lit up. Not yet. Send it to me now. I watched as Michael tapped his screen. Rebecca's phone pinged. She opened the email, scrolling with a satisfied expression. Let's see. The Vanderbilt family, obviously. The Chens from Chen Properties. Wait, no, different Chen. Jonathan Martinez from Apex Capital. That's my $50,000 sponsor. The Richardson Trust. She kept scrolling, her perfectly manicured nails sliding down the screen. I held my breath. But then she locked her phone. Everything looks perfect. Our table is positioned right near the stage. Premium visibility. My stomach dropped. They hadn't listed me yet. Margaret had kept her promise. Complete anonymity until the event. Rebecca started to walk away, then paused. She turned back to me, her expression almost pitying. Emma, honey, I hope you're not still upset about the other day. I wasn't trying to be mean. I was protecting you from embarrassment. You understand that, right? The office went quiet. Everyone was listening now. I understand, I said softly. Good. She leaned against the desk next to mine. Look, you're young. You work hard. But there are levels to this world. That gala? Those people donate what you make in a year without blinking. They inherit wealth, they build empires, they shape industries. And they can spot someone who doesn't belong from across the room. My hands curled into fists under my desk. I've been doing this for 15 years, Rebecca continued. I've earned my seat at that table. I've cultivated relationships, brought in millions for the foundation. Do you know how many hours I've spent planning events, courting donors, building credibility? I'm sure it's been a lot of work, I managed. It has. She straightened up, smoothing her skirt. So when I tell you that you can't afford to be there, financially or professionally, I'm speaking from experience. I'm actually looking out for you. Sarah from accounting nodded sympathetically. Rebecca's right, Emma. These things have a certain standard. Exactly, Rebecca said. It's nothing personal. It's just reality. Some of us are meant for the spotlight, and some of us are meant to support from behind the scenes. She walked away then, her heels clicking on the tile floor. I sat there, surrounded by my coworkers' pitying glances and awkward silences. My cheap blazer suddenly felt heavier. My Tupperware lunch container sat on my desk, a symbol of everything Rebecca thought I was. But in my purse, my phone held an email. Confirmation, Diamond Legacy sponsorship. $80,000. Anonymous until event reveal. I opened my desk drawer and pulled out the small envelope that had arrived by courier that morning. Inside was a thick, cream-colored card with gold embossing. The Children's Hospital Foundation cordially invites Diamond sponsor Emma Chen to the annual charity gala. VIP reception. Reserved seating. Special recognition. Tomorrow night, Rebecca Torres was going to learn something important. The world had levels, all right. And she had absolutely no idea which one I was on. Saturday evening arrived like a storm I'd been waiting for my entire life. I stood in front of my apartment mirror at 6 p.m., barely recognizing myself. The dress had arrived yesterday, a midnight blue gown from a boutique in Soho. Not Valentino, but elegant, understated. The kind of dress that whispered instead of shouted. It cost $3,000, which 3 months ago would have been impossible. Now it was barely a fraction of a fraction. My hair was swept up. Minimal jewelry. Small diamond earrings my grandmother left me. The real kind, not cubic zirconia. I looked like I belonged. That was the strangest part. I actually looked like I belonged. My phone buzzed. The car service the foundation sent. Arriving in 5 minutes, Miss Chen. I grabbed my clutch and took one last look around my tiny studio. The futon. The IKEA desk. The brick wall outside my window. After tonight, I could move anywhere. Buy anything? But something told me I wouldn't. Not yet. The black Mercedes waited downstairs. The driver opened the door. Miss Chen, the Plaza Hotel? Yes, please. As we drove through Manhattan, my phone lit up with a text from my little brother Danny. Mom told me about the gala tonight. You didn't have to do this, Em, but thank you. For everything. Love you. I blinked back tears, careful not to ruin my makeup. We pulled up to the plaza at 7:15. The red carpet stretched from the curb to the entrance, lined with photographers and guests in designer gowns and tuxedos. Actual red carpet, like the Oscars. My hands trembled as the driver opened my door. Miss Chen, a woman in a headset approached immediately. I'm Margaret. We spoke on the phone. It's wonderful to finally meet you. She was older, warm, with kind eyes that crinkled when she smiled. Margaret, I breathed. Hi. You look absolutely beautiful, she said, linking her arm through mine. Now, we've kept everything exactly as you requested. Your name isn't on any of the public materials. Rebecca Torres has no idea you're attending, let alone your sponsorship level. She's already here? Oh, yes, Margaret smiled. She arrived 30 minutes ago. Made quite an entrance. She's currently at the VIP reception, holding court near the bar. My stomach flipped. The VIP reception? Where all our major sponsors gather before the main event. Don't worry, we'll bring you in through a side entrance. You'll be seated at the diamond table front and center. Rebecca's table is 2 rows back. I stopped walking. Wait, Rebecca isn't at the diamond table? No, dear. The diamond table is reserved for our highest tier sponsors only. Donations of $50,000 and above. Rebecca's firm purchased a corporate table, $20,000 total, split among their attendees. She's done wonderful work for us over the years, but she's never been a major individual donor herself. The irony hit me like a wave. Rebecca had spent 15 years planning these events, courting wealthy donors, standing next to their money, but she'd never been one of them. And now We entered through a side corridor, away from the main entrance. The plaza's interior was breathtaking. Crystal chandeliers, marble floors, flowers everywhere. The ballroom doors were open, revealing hundreds of guests already mingling inside. The program starts at 8, Margaret explained. Cocktails and networking until then. Dinner at 8:30. The donor recognition happens at 9:15. That's when we'll announce your contribution. And Rebecca will be in the room, front row of the corporate section. She'll have a perfect view. I nodded slowly, my heartbeat thundering in my ears. Margaret squeezed my hand. Emma, what you're doing tonight, it's not just about the money, though that money will literally save lives. It's about showing young women like yourself that they belong in these spaces. That generosity doesn't have an age limit or a dress code. Rebecca said I couldn't afford to breathe the same air as real donors. Margaret's face hardened. Then tonight, she learns what real generosity looks like. We approached the ballroom entrance. Through the doors, I could see Rebecca immediately. She was impossible to miss. That custom Valentino dress, bright red, form-fitting. She stood in a circle with 3 older men in tuxedos, laughing loudly, touching their arms, playing the part she'd perfected over 15 years. She looked powerful, confident, untouchable. Ready? Margaret asked. I thought about the break room, the humiliation, her words. Girls like you. Can't afford. Don't belong. I thought about Danny in his hospital bed 15 years ago. Tubes and wires everywhere, my parents crying in the hallway. I thought about every person who'd ever underestimated me because of my age, my gender, my cheap blazers. I'm ready, I said. We walked into the ballroom together. The first person to see me was Michael from my office. His eyes went wide. He nudged Sarah from accounting, who turned and gasped audibly. Then Karen from HR spotted me. Her mouth actually fell open. The whispers started rippling through the Morrison and Blake table like dominoes. And finally, Rebecca turned around. Our eyes met across the crowded ballroom. Her champagne glass froze halfway to her lips. Her perfectly practiced smile faltered for just a fraction of a second. I gave her the same sweet, small smile I'd given her yesterday in the office. Then Margaret guided me past her, past the corporate tables, past the mid-tier donors, all the way to the front of the room where a table sat beneath a spotlight, draped in gold fabric with a small placard, Diamond Legacy Sponsors. There were only 4 chairs at the table. Your seat, Miss Chen, Margaret said. I sat down in front of Rebecca Torres and 300 of New York's wealthiest donors, and I waited for the moment when everything would change. The ballroom hummed with conversation, but I could feel Rebecca's eyes burning into the back of my head. I sat at the diamond table, hands folded in my lap, trying to appear calm even though my pulse was racing. The 3 other seats at my table were occupied by people who looked exactly like what Rebecca described. Old money, inherited wealth, the kind of people who donated millions like it was pocket change. To my right sat Eleanor Ashford, 70-something, dripping in pearls. To my left, James Chen, no relation, a tech CEO worth $500 million. Across from me, Dr. Patricia Moore, a renowned surgeon who donated her entire speaking fee from a lecture series. First time at the gala? Eleanor asked, her voice kind but curious. Yes, I said softly. First time. Well, you picked quite an entrance year, she smiled. The foundation is announcing some record-breaking donations tonight. James leaned over. Are you in tech? I don't think we've met. I sold my company recently. Inventory management software. His eyebrows rose. Smart sector. Boring but profitable. Good exit? Good enough, I said, keeping my voice neutral. Behind me, I could hear Rebecca's voice carrying across the ballroom. She was still in performance mode, laughing too loudly, name-dropping, making sure everyone knew she belonged here. That's Rebecca Torres, she was saying to someone. Yes, VP at Morrison & Blake. I've been coordinating with the foundation for years. This event wouldn't run half as smoothly without my connections. I closed my eyes briefly. A waiter approached with champagne. I took a glass, my hands surprisingly steady. At 7:50, the lights dimmed slightly. A man in a tuxedo stepped up to the microphone at the front of the room. David Winters, the foundation's executive director. Good evening, everyone! His voice boomed through the speakers. If you could begin finding your seats, we'll be starting our program shortly. The crowd shifted, conversations lowering as people moved toward their tables. I watched as Rebecca finally sat down at her table, 2 rows behind mine. Michael, Sarah, and Karen were with her, along with 4 other Morrison & Blake executives. Rebecca's eyes kept darting to me. I could see her whispering to Michael, her expression confused, almost irritated. David continued. Before we begin dinner, I want to take a moment to thank some very special people who made tonight possible. My stomach clenched. Our VIP sponsors have gone above and beyond this year. These individuals and organizations don't just write checks, they transform lives. They're the reason we can provide cutting-edge treatments, fund research, and ensure no child is turned away because of money. Eleanor reached over and patted my hand. Nervous? Don't be. This part is actually quite lovely. I nodded, not trusting my voice. David pulled out a card. Let's start with our platinum sponsors. Donations of $25,000. Morrison & Blake Consulting, thank you for your continued support. Polite applause. Rebecca stood, smiling graciously, giving a small wave. She looked pleased with herself, proud. Several other platinum sponsors were named. More applause. Now, our gold sponsors, donations of $50,000. He read off 3 names. A hedge fund. A law firm. Then, Jonathan Martinez of Apex Capital. Stronger applause. A silver-haired man stood, buttoning his tuxedo jacket, nodding humbly. Rebecca was beaming. That was her guy. The sponsor she'd landed, the one she'd been bragging about all week. And now, David's voice shifted, became weightier. We come to a very special category. Our Diamond Legacy sponsors. These are donations of $75,000 or more. Contributions that create lasting generational impact. The room went completely silent. I could feel 300 pairs of eyes turning toward our table. This year we have 4 Diamond Legacy sponsors. David continued. Dr. Patricia Moore, whose incredible donation of $100,000 will fund an entire research wing. Patricia stood. Thunderous applause. She waved, sat back down. Eleanor Ashford, whose family foundation has contributed $85,000 to our pediatric oncology program. More applause. Eleanor stood briefly, elegant and humble. James Chen of Titan Technologies, whose $90,000 donation will provide state-of-the-art equipment for our diagnostic center. James rose, smiled, sat down. I gripped the edge of the table. This was it. David paused, looking down at his card. His eyebrows rose slightly. When he looked up, there was something like wonder in his expression. And finally, we have a diamond sponsor who requested to remain anonymous until tonight. Someone who believes that giving back isn't about recognition. It's about remembering where you came from and ensuring others have the same chance you did. Rebecca leaned forward in her seat. I could see her from the corner of my eye, straining to see who was left at our table. This individual, David continued, his voice growing emotional, is 25 years old. just 25. She built a company from her college dorm room, sold it, and immediately decided to honor the organization that once saved her family when they had nothing. My heart was pounding so hard I thought everyone could hear it. Her donation of $80,000 is one of the largest single contributions we've ever received from someone under 30. Rebecca's face went pale. I watched her put the pieces together, the age, the table, the empty chair. "Ladies and gentlemen," David said, his voice ringing through the ballroom, "please join me in recognizing Miss Emma Chen." The spotlight swung to me. I stood slowly, my legs shaking, and turned to face the room. The applause was deafening, and Rebecca Torres sat frozen in her seat, her champagne glass slipping from her fingers and shattering on the floor. The applause seemed to go on forever. I stood under the spotlight, my heart hammering, trying to smile graciously while my entire body trembled. 300 people were on their feet. Cameras flashed. The ballroom sparkled with champagne glasses raised in my direction. But all I could see was Rebecca. She sat motionless at her table, surrounded by shattered crystal and spilled champagne. Her face had gone from pale to crimson. Michael was staring at me with his mouth open. Sarah looked like she might cry. Karen was frantically whispering to the executive next to her. David Winters continued from the podium, his voice warm with emotion. "Emma's story is particularly meaningful to our foundation. 15 years ago, her younger brother was treated here for leukemia. Her family couldn't afford the care, and our foundation covered everything. Today, that little boy is starting medical school. He wants to be a pediatric oncologist." More applause. I felt tears prickling my eyes, but forced them back. "Emma didn't have to do this," David said. "She could have spent that money on anything. A house, a car, travel. Instead, she chose to give back at an age when most people are still paying off student loans. That is what generosity looks like. That is what this foundation stands for." I finally sat down, my legs giving out more than lowering gracefully. Eleanor squeezed my hand. "Beautifully done, dear." The spotlight moved away. The program continued, dinner service beginning, waiters flowing through the ballroom with the first course. But I couldn't focus on any of it. Behind me, I heard Rebecca's voice, tight and strained. "Michael, did you know about this?" "No." "I swear I had no idea. She works for us." "She's a junior associate. She wears the same 4 blazers. She brings Tupperware lunches. How the hell does she have $80,000 to throw around?" "I don't know, Rebecca, but clearly, this doesn't make sense." Her voice was rising, drawing looks from nearby tables. "This has to be a mistake. Maybe it's a different Emma Chen. Maybe—" "Rebecca," Karen interrupted gently. "That's definitely our Emma. Look at her." Silence. I could feel Rebecca's stare boring into my back. The first course arrived, some kind of fancy salad with edible flowers. I pushed it around my plate, my appetite completely gone. "Don't let it get cold," Patricia Moore said across from me. "And don't let whatever drama is happening behind you ruin this night. You earned this moment." "I don't know if I earned anything," I whispered. "I just got lucky." "Luck?" James Chen laughed. "You built and sold a company before you turned 26. That's not luck. That's talent and work ethic. Own it." I nodded, trying to believe him. Halfway through the main course, some kind of perfectly cooked salmon I could barely taste, I felt a presence behind my chair. "Excuse me," Rebecca's voice. Controlled now. Professional. But I could hear the fury underneath, coiled tight like a spring about to snap. I turned slowly. She stood there in her red Valentino dress, a forced smile plastered on her face. Up close, I could see the rage in her eyes, the tension in her jaw. "Emma," she said, her voice sugary sweet for the benefit of anyone listening. "Congratulations on your generous donation. I had no idea you were so philanthropic." "Thank you, Rebecca. I'm just curious," she continued, her smile never wavering even as her eyes turned to ice. "How exactly does a junior associate afford an $80,000 donation? On a $55,000 salary?" The people at nearby tables went quiet. Eleanor raised an eyebrow. James set down his fork. I took a sip of water, buying time. "I had some money saved." "Saved?" Rebecca's laugh was sharp, brittle. $80,000 saved. From what exactly? Rebecca! Michael appeared behind her looking mortified. Maybe this isn't the time? She waved him off, never breaking eye contact with me. No, I'm genuinely curious. Because see, Emma, I've been working in corporate fundraising for 15 years. I know what people earn. I know what things cost. And the math here doesn't add up. My hands clenched in my lap under the table. I sold a company. You sold a company? Her voice dripped with disbelief. You're 25 years old. You've been working for us for 2 years. When exactly did you have time to build and sell a company? During college, I said quietly. It was a small software startup. Inventory management. Someone bought it. Rebecca's smile finally cracked. And you just forgot to mention this at work? During any of your performance reviews? Your resume? I signed an NDA, and it didn't seem relevant to my position. Didn't seem relevant? Her voice was getting louder now, drawing more attention. You're sitting here at the diamond table, outspending everyone from our firm combined, and you didn't think that was relevant? Sarah appeared at Rebecca's elbow, touching her arm. Rebecca, people are staring. Let them stare, Rebecca snapped. This girl has been playing some kind of game, acting poor, acting humble. And the whole time she's sitting on what? Millions? How much did you sell it for, Emma? Come on, share with the class. The ballroom had gone quiet around us. Even the waiters had stopped moving. I stood slowly, my chair scraping against the floor. I was still shorter than Rebecca in her heels, but I looked her straight in the eyes. The sale price was $2.3 million, I said clearly. I kept living in my studio apartment and bringing Tupperware lunches because I wanted to understand who I was without the money. I wanted to see how people would treat me. Rebecca's face twisted. Oh, so this was some kind of social experiment? Some rich girl playing dress-up? No, I said, my voice steady now. This was a young woman trying to figure out if she could make it on her own merit. And every single day, you showed me exactly who you are. Who I am, Rebecca's voice cracked. I've dedicated 15 years to this foundation. I've brought in donors, planned events, built relationships. You've spent 15 years standing next to other people's money, I said quietly. Taking credit for their generosity. But tonight, when someone at your own firm, someone you've belittled and humiliated for 2 years, actually makes a difference? You can't stand it. The words hung in the air like smoke. Rebecca's chest was heaving. You manipulative little... That's enough. A new voice. Cold, sharp, authoritative. We both turned. Standing at the edge of our table was a man I'd never seen before. 60s, impeccably dressed, with steel gray hair and eyes that could cut glass. Robert Morrison, he said, looking at Rebecca. Founding partner of Morrison & Blake, and I think we need to have a conversation. The temperature in the ballroom seemed to drop 10 degrees. Robert Morrison stood there like a judge at a sentencing hearing. I'd never met him. He worked from the London office, rarely visited New York, but everyone at the firm knew his name, knew his reputation. He'd built Morrison & Blake from nothing 40 years ago. And he was looking at Rebecca like she was something unpleasant he'd found on his shoe. Mr. Morrison, Rebecca stammered, her face draining of color. I didn't know you were attending tonight. Clearly, he said, his British accent clipped and precise. I flew in this morning specifically for this gala. The foundation is important to me. My daughter was treated here 20 years ago. Survived brain cancer. He stepped closer, and Rebecca actually took a step back. I've been standing at the bar for the last 10 minutes, he continued, his voice quiet but somehow audible to everyone nearby, watching one of my VPs publicly berate a junior associate who just donated more money than our entire firm contributed. At a charity event, in front of 300 witnesses. Sir, You were just what, Rebecca? Questioning how she could afford it? Accusing her of playing games? Making a scene? Michael tried to intervene. Mr. Morrison, I think there's been a misunderstanding. There's no misunderstanding, Robert said, still looking at Rebecca. I heard every word. So did half the room. He turned to me. Miss Chen, is it? Yes, sir. Your donation tonight was $80,000? Yes, sir. He nodded slowly. And you sold a software company for $2.3 million? Yes. Inventory management, I heard you say? Yes, sir. I built it during college. Small operation, but it solved a specific problem for mid-sized retailers. Smart, he said. Profitable sector. And you've been working at my firm for 2 years as a junior associate while sitting on that kind of capital? My throat tightened. Yes, sir. I wanted to prove I could succeed on my own merit, without people knowing about the money. And instead, he glanced at Rebecca. You were treated like you didn't matter. Like you couldn't possibly belong in spaces like this. Am I understanding correctly? I hesitated. Rebecca was staring at me with something between terror and rage. Answer honestly, Miss Chen, Robert said. I want to know exactly what's been happening in my New York office. I took a breath. Earlier this week, Rebecca told me I couldn't afford to breathe the same air as real donors. She removed me from the Gala invitation list. She said girls like me don't belong at events like this. You could have heard a pin drop. Robert's jaw tightened. She said what? In the break room. In front of 3 other employees. She said I couldn't afford the ticket price. That this gala was for people who matter. People who can actually make a difference. Rebecca's face was white. I was trying to protect her from embarrassment. Protect her? Robert's voice cut through the ballroom like a blade. You humiliated her. You judged her worth based on her clothes and her lunch containers. You decided she didn't deserve to be here without knowing a single thing about her capabilities or her character. Mr. Morrison, please, do you know what I was doing at 25? Robert didn't wait for an answer. I was broke, living in a bedsit in Manchester, eating beans on toast for dinner. I wore the same suit to every meeting for 3 years. If someone had judged me the way you judged Miss Chen, I never would have built this firm. He turned back to me, his expression softening slightly. You donated $80,000 tonight. To a cause that clearly means something to you. At an age when most people are drowning in debt. That shows character. That shows values. Thank you, sir. Don't thank me yet, he said. Because I have some questions. You've been working for us for 2 years. How's your performance been? Michael jumped in, his voice nervous. Emma's performance reviews have been excellent. Strong analytical skills, reliable, meets all deadlines. Just excellent? Robert interrupted. Not exceptional? Michael faltered. Well, I mean, she's competent. Competent, Robert repeated flatly. He looked at me. Miss Chen, why are you still a junior associate after 2 years of excellent performance? The question hung in the air. I glanced at Rebecca, who looked like she wanted the floor to swallow her whole. I don't know, sir, I said honestly. I've applied for 2 promotions. Both were denied. On what grounds? Lack of executive presence, I said quietly. That was the phrase used in my last review. Robert's eyebrows rose. Executive presence. What does that mean exactly? I don't know, sir. He turned to Rebecca. You conducted her last review, didn't you? Rebecca's voice was barely a whisper. Yes. So, explain to me what lack of executive presence means when applied to a young woman who builds and sells companies, donates generously to charity, and apparently carries herself well enough to sit at the diamond table without anyone questioning whether she belongs. Silence. I'm waiting, Rebecca. Rebecca's voice cracked. I thought she lacked confidence. She was too quiet too. She didn't dress the part. She didn't dress expensively enough, Robert corrected. That's what you mean. She didn't perform wealth in a way you approved of. More silence. Robert looked around the ballroom, at all the faces watching this unfold. Then he looked at me. Miss Chen, I'm going to ask you something, and I want you to answer truthfully. After tonight, after everything that's happened, do you have any interest in continuing to work for Morrison and Blake? My heart stopped. This was it. The moment that would define everything. I thought about the break room. The humiliation. 2 years of being overlooked, underestimated, dismissed. But I also thought about the other associates. The ones who'd been kind. The work I'd actually enjoyed when Rebecca wasn't involved. That depends, I said slowly, on whether the firm's values align with the person standing at the top or the person who's been blocking my advancement. Robert's smile was grim. Fair answer. He turned back to Rebecca. You're suspended, effective immediately. HR will be in touch Monday morning. Michael, you'll escort her out. Rebecca's face crumpled. You can't. Mr. Morrison, please, I've given 15 years. And in those 15 years, how many talented people did you push out because they didn't meet your arbitrary standards? How many Emma Chens did we lose because you decided they didn't look the part? He didn't wait for an answer. He turned to me one more time. Miss Chen, I'd like to schedule a meeting with you Monday morning. 9 a.m. My temporary office in Manhattan. We need to discuss your future with the firm, assuming you're still interested in having one. I nodded, not trusting my voice. Good. He straightened his cufflinks. Now I believe they're about to serve dessert. Let's try to enjoy the rest of the evening. He walked away, leaving Rebecca standing there, tears streaming down her face, her perfect red dress suddenly looking like a costume. Michael touched her arm. Come on, Rebecca. Let's go. They left together, Rebecca's heels clicking across the marble floor one last time, growing fainter and fainter until they disappeared completely. I sank back into my chair, my whole body shaking. Eleanor leaned over. Well, she said, a small smile playing at her lips. That was quite a show. But the night wasn't over yet. Because at that moment, the ballroom doors opened, and someone I never expected to see walked in. I stared at the ballroom entrance, my heart catching in my throat. It was Danny, my little brother. He stood there in a tuxedo that looked slightly too big for him, his dark hair neatly combed, his eyes scanning the crowd. He was 22 now, tall and healthy. Nothing like that frail 7-year-old hooked up to machines 15 years ago. Emma! He spotted me and started walking toward the diamond table, weaving through the other guests. I stood quickly, nearly knocking over my water glass. Danny, what are you doing here? He reached me and pulled me into a tight hug. Mom called me this morning. She told me what you were doing tonight, the donation, everything. I got on a train from Boston. There was no way I was missing this. Tears I'd been holding back all evening finally spilled over. You didn't have to— Yes, I did, he said firmly, pulling back to look at me. Emma, do you have any idea what you just did? That money, it's going to save kids like me. Kids whose families are drowning. You gave them a chance. Eleanor dabbed at her eyes with a napkin. Is this the brother? The medical school student? Yes, ma'am, Danny said, suddenly aware of the table full of wealthy strangers. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Nonsense, Patricia Moore said warmly. Sit down, young man. There's an empty chair right there. Let's get you some food. A waiter appeared immediately, setting a place for Danny. He sat next to me, still looking overwhelmed by the grandeur of the ballroom. I saw what happened, he said quietly, leaning close. With your boss. Everyone's talking about it out in the lobby. Great, I muttered. That's exactly what I wanted, to be the evening's gossip. Are you kidding? Emma, you're a hero. That woman treated you like garbage. And you just showed everyone that kindness and generosity have nothing to do with age or appearances or any of that superficial crap. James Chen raised his glass. The kid's right. You handled that with more grace than most people twice your age would have managed. I didn't handle anything, I said. Robert Morrison handled it. I just stood there shaking. You stood your ground, Eleanor corrected. There's a difference between handling a situation and surviving it with dignity. You did the latter beautifully. Danny squeezed my hand under the table. I'm proud of you, Em. Really proud. The dessert course arrived, some elaborate chocolate creation with gold leaf. Danny's eyes widened. Is that real gold? Edible gold, Patricia explained. 24 karat. Completely tasteless, purely decorative. Rich people are weird, Danny whispered to me, and I couldn't help but laugh, really laugh, for the first time all evening. The program continued. David Winters returned to the podium for closing remarks. He talked about the foundation's impact, the children saved, the families helped. He showed a video of kids in the hospital, bald from chemo, smiling through pain, playing with therapy dogs. Danny's hand tightened around mine. I knew he was seeing himself in those kids, remembering. And finally, David said, his voice thick with emotion, I want to acknowledge Emma Chen one more time. Emma, could you stand? My stomach dropped. Again? Eleanor nudged me. Go on, dear. I stood reluctantly, Danny standing with me. Emma's donation tonight represents something profound, David continued. It's not just about the money, though that money will literally change lives. It's about remembering, about paying forward the kindness that was shown to you. Her brother Danny is here tonight, the little boy who was given a chance 15 years ago when his family had nothing. The spotlight found us. Danny raised his hand in a small wave, looking embarrassed but proud. Today, Danny starts medical school in the fall. He wants to be a pediatric oncologist. He wants to give other kids the same chance this foundation gave him. That is the legacy of generosity. That is why we do this work. The applause was different this time. Warmer, more personal. People weren't just clapping for a large donation. They were clapping for a story, for a circle completing itself. When we sat back down, there were tears on Danny's cheeks. I didn't know he was going to say all that. Neither did I whispered. As the evening wound down, people began moving toward the exits. But several guests stopped at our table, introducing themselves, shaking my hand, thanking me. A woman in her 60s approached, her eyes red. My grandson was treated here 3 years ago. Lymphoma. He's in remission now. Your donation. It means families like mine won't have to choose between treatment and keeping their homes. Thank you. An older man in a tuxedo. I'm on the foundation board. We've been trying to fund a new research wing for years. Your contribution gets us closer. You've done something remarkable tonight, Miss Chen. A young couple, probably in their 30s. We brought our daughter here last year. She had a rare heart condition. The foundation covered the surgery. She's 5 now, healthy, starting kindergarten. People like you. You're why she's alive. Each conversation left me more emotional than the last. By the time the ballroom started to empty, I felt completely wrung out. Danny and I walked toward the exit together, his arm around my shoulders. The plaza lobby was still bustling with gala attendees, taking photos, calling cars. Emma Chen? I turned. A woman approached, mid-40s, sharp business suit, carrying a leather portfolio. She handed me a card. Vanessa Lee. I'm a partner at Lee & Associates, Strategic Consulting. I watched what happened tonight, both your donation and how you handled that situation with your boss. I'd like to talk to you about opportunities. I stared at the card. Opportunities? Your software sale. Your judgment. Your composure under pressure. Those are skills we value. We're always looking for talent, especially talent that understands both the technical side and the human side of business. She smiled. Think about it. Call me Monday if you're interested. She walked away before I could respond. Danny looked at the card, then at me. Emma, I think your life just changed. My life changed 3 months ago when I sold the company, I said. Tonight was just everyone else finding out. We stepped outside. The night air was cool, refreshing after the stuffy ballroom. The city lights sparkled around us. What are you going to do? Danny asked. About Morrison and Blake? About that meeting Monday? I thought about Robert Morrison's face. The suspension. The questions about my future. I don't know, I admitted. Part of me wants to quit, take that consultant's card, start something new. But another part of me thinks about all the other junior associates there. The ones who are probably getting treated the same way I was. If I leave, does anything change? That's not your responsibility, Em. Maybe not. But maybe it could be. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. This is Robert Morrison. Confirming our meeting Monday 9 a.m. The address is below. I meant what I said tonight. We need to discuss your future. And not just your role. Your potential. See you Monday. I showed Danny the message. He whistled low. Okay, so maybe don't make any decisions tonight. Probably smart. We stood there for a moment, watching the city move around us. Yellow cabs. Late-night pedestrians. The endless energy of New York. You know what's crazy? Danny said. 15 years ago, we were broke. Dad was working double shifts. Mom was selling her jewelry. I was dying in a hospital bed. And now you're here, in a designer dress, having just donated $80,000 to save other kids like me. How did we get here? I leaned my head against his shoulder. I built something. Got lucky. Worked hard. Some combination of all three. You did more than that, he said quietly. You stayed humble. You stayed kind. Even when that woman was treating you like dirt, you could have thrown your money in her face at any time. But you didn't. You waited until it mattered, until it was about the cause, not about revenge. Maybe a little bit about revenge, I admitted. He laughed. Okay, maybe a little, but mostly about doing the right thing. A black Mercedes pulled up, the car service the foundation had arranged. The driver stepped out. Miss Chen, ready to head home? Home. My tiny studio apartment with the futon and the brick wall view. Suddenly, I wasn't sure where home was anymore. But I knew one thing for certain. Monday morning was going to be very, very interesting. Monday morning arrived like a reckoning. I stood outside the temporary Manhattan office of Morrison and Blake at 8:50 a.m., staring up at the glass tower. My reflection looked back at me. Same cheap blazer, same simple blouse, same person I'd been all along. Except everything had changed. My phone had been exploding since Saturday night. Texts from coworkers I barely knew, congratulating me or asking questions. LinkedIn requests from strangers. An email from a reporter asking for an interview about young philanthropy. I'd ignored all of it. The only message I'd answered was from my mom. Your father and I are so proud of you, sweetheart. Not because of the money, because of your heart. I took a breath and walked through the revolving doors. The receptionist's eyes widened when she saw me. Miss Chen, Mr. Morrison is expecting you. 40th floor, corner office? The elevator ride felt endless. When the doors opened, a woman in her 50s was waiting. Sharp suit, kind smile. Emma, I'm Patricia Brooks, Mr. Morrison's executive assistant. Come with me, please. She led me down a hallway lined with conference rooms. Through the glass walls, I could see teams working, people on phones, the normal rhythm of business. We stopped at a corner office with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Manhattan. Robert Morrison sat behind a massive desk, reading something on his laptop. He looked up when I entered. Miss Chen, right on time. Please, sit. I sat in one of the leather chairs across from his desk, my hands folded in my lap. He closed his laptop and leaned back. How was your weekend? After Saturday, I imagine you needed time to decompress. It was a lot, I admitted. I'm sure it was. He picked up a folder from his desk. I spent most of Sunday reviewing your file. Your performance reviews, your project work, your applications for advancement. Do you know what I found? What? A pattern, he said quietly. 2 years of exceptional work. Client satisfaction scores in the top 10%. 0 complaints. 3 successful project completions that brought in new business. And yet somehow you were denied promotion twice and given barely adequate raises. My throat tightened. Rebecca wasn't just blocking you, he continued. She was systematically holding you back. And I don't think you were the only one. He opened the folder. I pulled the records for all junior associates under her supervision in the past 5 years. 12 people total. 7 of them left within 18 months. The exit interview notes are illuminating. What did they say? Phrases like toxic environment, felt undervalued, couldn't advance no matter what I did. 3 specifically mentioned Rebecca by name. He closed the folder. She created a culture of favoritism and cruelty, and I didn't see it because I was in London. That's on me. Mr. Morrison, let me finish, he said gently. Saturday night after you left, I stayed at the Gala. I spoke to people who know you, Margaret from the foundation, some of the other donors at your table. They all said the same thing. You're brilliant, humble, and you handled an impossible situation with grace. Then I called our clients, the ones you've worked with. They said you're professional, innovative, and they specifically requested you for future projects. He stood and walked to the window, hands in his pockets. So here's my question, Miss Chen. What do you want? I blinked. Sir? What do you want from your career? From this firm? From your life? Because right now you have options. You have money. You could walk away from Morrison and Blake and never look back. You could start your own company. You could take that consulting job. Yes, I heard about Vanessa Lee approaching you. Or you could stay here and help me fix what's broken. My heart was pounding. What are you offering? He turned back to me. Senior associate. Immediate promotion. 40% salary increase. You'd report directly to me for the next 6 months while I restructure the New York office. After that, we reassess based on your performance and your goals. I stared at him. That's a huge jump. You've earned it. Your work earned it 2 years ago. I'm just correcting an injustice. He sat back down. But I need to know you're committed. That you're not just taking this as a consolation prize while you plan your exit. I thought about the other junior associates. The ones still trapped under managers like Rebecca. If I stay, I said slowly, I want to be part of the restructuring. I want input on how we evaluate talent, how we promote people, how we create an environment where someone's worth isn't measured by their clothes or their lunch containers. A smile tugged at his lips. Deal. And I want protection for the other associates who might face retaliation because of what happened Saturday. I don't want them punished for being associated with me. Already handled, he said. I've made it very clear that anyone who retaliates will be terminated immediately. Michael has been reassigned. Sarah and Karen are under review. The message has been sent. I took a breath. What about Rebecca? His expression hardened. Rebecca has been with the firm for 15 years. HR is conducting a full investigation. If the findings support what I witnessed Saturday, and what I'm hearing from former employees, she'll be terminated. If there are mitigating factors I'm not aware of, she may be offered a resignation with severance. Either way, she won't be returning to a management position. That seems fair. Fair? He raised an eyebrow. Emma, she humiliated you publicly, blocked your career advancement, and created a hostile work environment. If you wanted her crucified, you'd be justified. I don't want revenge, I said quietly. I just want to make sure she can't do this to anyone else. He studied me for a long moment. You really mean that? Yes. That is why I want you on my leadership team, he said, his voice firm. Not because of your software sale. Not because of your donation. Because you understand that real power isn't about crushing people. It's about lifting them up. I felt tears prickling my eyes but blinked them back. So, he said, extending his hand across the desk, do we have a deal? Senior associate reporting to me, helping rebuild this office into something better? I looked at his hand, thought about Saturday night, about Rebecca's face, about Danny in his tuxedo, proud of his big sister, about every person who'd ever underestimated me because I didn't look like their version of success. I reached across the desk and shook his hand. We have a deal. His grip was firm, respectful. Welcome to your new position, Miss Chen. Now let's get to work. 6 months later, I stood in the Morrison and Blake conference room, looking out at 15 junior associates, eager faces, nervous energy, the same hunger I'd had 2 years ago. Welcome to the new mentorship program, I said, smiling at them. I'm Emma Chen, senior associate, and I'm here to make sure your talent gets recognized, not buried. A young woman in the front row raised her hand. She wore a blazer that had seen better days. Her shoes were scuffed. I recognized that look, the look of someone doing their best with limited resources. Yes? Is it true what they say? About you and the gala? I'd been expecting this question for months. The story had become legend in the office, whispered in break rooms, shared during happy hours, embellished with each retelling. Depends on what they're saying, I said carefully. That you donated $80,000 while working as a junior associate. That you called out a VP in front of 300 people. That Robert Morrison personally promoted you. I nodded slowly. All true, but that's not the whole story. I walked to the front of the table and sat on the edge, keeping it casual. The real story is that I spent 2 years being told I wasn't enough. Not polished enough. Not confident enough. not executive enough. I was judged on my clothes, my lunch, my apartment, everything except my actual work. The room was completely silent now. And I believed it, I continued. For a long time, I thought maybe they were right. Maybe I didn't belong in those spaces. Maybe I needed to be someone different to succeed. The young woman in the scuffed shoes was leaning forward, hanging on every word. But here's what I learned. Your worth isn't determined by your wardrobe or your bank account. It's determined by your work, your integrity, and your willingness to lift others up as you climb. Everything else is just noise. I stood and picked up a stack of folders. These are your project assignments. Real client work. High visibility. You'll be working directly with senior partners, including Mr. Morrison and myself. Your performance will be evaluated on results, not appearances. Questions? A young man in the back raised his hand. What happened to Rebecca Torres? Did she really get fired? I kept my voice neutral. Ms. Torres is no longer with the firm. That's all I can say. What I didn't say? Rebecca had been given the option to resign with a severance package. She'd refused, demanded a wrongful termination lawsuit. HR's investigation had uncovered 5 years of documented complaints, suppressed talent, and discriminatory behavior. She'd lost. Badly. Last I heard, she was working for a much smaller firm in New Jersey. No management position. No direct reports. Just Rebecca and her bitterness. I didn't take pleasure in it. But I didn't lose sleep over it either. Any other questions? I asked. The young woman in front raised her hand again. Why are you doing this? The mentorship program. You could have just taken your promotion and moved on. I smiled. Because 6 months ago, someone gave me a chance when I didn't look like I deserved it. Someone saw past the cheap blazer and the Tupperware lunches, and now it's my turn to do the same. After the meeting ended, the young woman approached me. Miss Chen? I'm Sophia. I just wanted to say thank you. I've been here 8 months, and this is the first time anyone's treated me like I matter. My chest tightened. You do matter, Sophia. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. She nodded, tears in her eyes, and left quickly. I gathered my materials and headed to my new office. Not huge, but mine. Windows overlooking the city. A door that closed. A nameplate that read, Emma Chen, Senior Associate. My phone buzzed. A text from Danny. Finished my first day of rotations. Pediatric oncology ward. It's exactly where I'm supposed to be. Thank you for everything. I smiled and typed back. You earned this. Proud of you, little brother. Another text, this one from my mom. Dinner Sunday? Your father wants to hear about the new program you started. Wouldn't miss it. I set my phone down and pulled up my laptop. An email from Robert Morrison. Staff meeting at 3 p.m. Need your input on Q4 restructuring plans. Your perspective is invaluable. 6 months ago, I was invisible, dismissed, told I didn't belong. Now I was shaping policy, mentoring talent, making decisions that would affect hundreds of employees. My office phone rang. Emma Chen. Miss Chen, this is Margaret from the Children's Hospital Foundation. I hope I'm not catching you at a bad time. Not at all, Margaret. What's up? We're planning next year's gala, and the board would like to know if you'd be interested in joining our planning committee. Your donation last year was transformative. We've been able to expand our treatment program significantly. We'd love to have your voice at the table. I looked out my window at the Manhattan skyline, thought about that night 6 months ago. The spotlight, the confrontation, the moment everything changed. I'd be honored, I said. Wonderful. Oh, and Emma? We've started a new scholarship program for young people interested in healthcare. We're calling it the Emma Chen Future Leaders Fund. We wanted to ask your permission first. My throat closed up. You're naming it after me? Your donation didn't just save lives, it inspired them. We've had a 20% increase in donations from people under 30. You showed young people that they can make a difference now, not later. That deserves recognition. I wiped my eyes quickly. Yes, you have my permission. Thank you, Emma. We'll be in touch with details. I hung up and sat there for a moment, trying to process everything. A knock on my door. Robert Morrison stood there, coffee in hand. Got a minute? Of course. Come in. He sat across from my desk, and smiled. I've been reviewing the applications for the next mentorship cohort. 53 applicants, all of them citing you as their reason for applying. You've started something, Emma. We've started something, I corrected. This only works because you supported it. I supported it because it was the right thing to do. But you're the one doing the actual work. He sipped his coffee. I've been thinking about succession planning. I'm not getting any younger. The firm needs new leadership, people who understand that talent comes in all forms, from all backgrounds. Sir, I'm not offering you a partnership today, he said, holding up a hand. You're 26. You need more experience, more time. But I want you to start thinking about it. About what kind of leader you want to be. What kind of firm you want to help build. I stared at him. You're serious. Completely. You've proven yourself 10 times over in 6 months. Now I want to see what you can do in 6 years. After he left, I sat in my office as the afternoon sun streamed through the windows, turning everything golden. I thought about the girl in the break room 6 months ago, holding her cheap coffee, being told she didn't belong. I thought about Rebecca's words. Girls like you can't afford to breathe the same air as real donors. And I smiled. Because girls like me, we don't just breathe that air. We change it. We transform it. We make it better for everyone who comes after us. My phone buzzed one more time. A text from an unknown number. This is Vanessa Lee. I saw the article about your mentorship program. Still interested in consulting? My offer stands. I looked at the message for a long moment. Then I typed, Thank you, but I'm exactly where I need to be. I set my phone down, opened my laptop, and got back to work. There were 15 junior associates counting on me. Dozens more who would come after. A whole generation of young professionals who deserved to be seen for their talent, not their bank accounts. And I was just getting started.